Say you're thinking of moving to Salida, Colorado and surrounding areas. Well, in this video, we are going to discuss the pros and cons of living in Howard, Colorado, and go over a few important details. So stick around to the end. There might be some info that you hadn't considered before. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you're the first to know when new informative videos come up. I'm Monica McCarthy, a realtor that specializes in living in Salida, Colorado. And I get calls all the time from people just like you who are thinking of moving here. So whether you're thinking of moving in a few weeks or a few months, please contact me. My information is in the description below. Let's set up a time to chat, and I'm happy to help you make a smooth transition to the Salida, Colorado area. So let's talk about the pros and cons of living in Howard, Colorado, which is just east of Salida, about 15-20 minutes. I'm here with Anna Edgren, who I helped her and her family buy a house in 2021, I believe it was. And so she moved to Howard then. She was originally in Salida, so she has a really good insight into what it's like to live in both and why you might choose to live in Howard opposed to Salida. So let's talk about the first pro about living in Howard. The first pro is probably that it's a little less expensive than living in Salida, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So when we first started looking at homes, you were renting in Salida, and we first started looking in Salida, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what did you uncover in that search from looking at Salida homes and then on the same budget looking in Howard?
It was actually pretty surprising,
Yeah.
the difference that it made. We were able to get a home in Howard that was over 4,000 square feet.
Wow.
On 3 acres for a very good price within our budget. When we were looking in Salida, it was a different story.
Yeah, I think those were significantly smaller, right?
They were much smaller and not as nice as the house we ended up finding in Howard.
Okay. And you've got 2 kids, so you kind of wanted that space.
We wanted space. Yes,
Yeah.
we wanted more space. We wanted some land. We have beautiful views. And again, it's from door to door from our house to our children's school, 22 minutes.
22 minutes. Okay. Not too bad.
Not too bad.
It's definitely less expensive. You get more house for your money if you decide to go 22 minutes outside of Salida.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Good to know. So another thing, we kind of alluded to this, was more space. So another pro, especially if you're living in the grid in downtown Salida, some of those homes are just right on top of each other. You've got small lots. You're close to town, but you're also really close to your neighbors. So talk about that. What's it like to have more space?
It's so nice. And that was a big driving factor of what took us to Howard as well.
Yeah.
My husband especially, it was the dream to have a little piece of land, more space. We live in Acres of Ireland, which is a neighborhood. So we do have neighbors, but we all have very large lots, views, and surrounded by trees as well. So it's very private, which we really like.
Yeah. And you said 3 acres, right?
Yes.
So that neighborhood has a lot of lots around that size, right?
They're all 3 acre lots. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's like one of the more neighborhoody spots in Howard. So we're kind of close to our neighbors given Howard. Lots of people have more land, animals. There's lots of incredible wildlife.
Yeah.
So all of that is really nice. And the views are pretty spectacular as well.
Yeah. So if you're coming from the city and you want those mountains immediately, Howard's a good spot.
It is.
Right?
Yes.
And then I know you mentioned wildlife because you've got like a roaming turkey. What's the collective noun for turkey?
I don't remember.
Rude. I don't know.
We got a lot of turkeys.
We got a lot of turkeys.
Yeah. So we love our pack of turkeys that comes around. Yeah, we have a lot of incredible birds. We love birds. So we get a lot of great birds. We also have some of the big guys. We've seen bears, mountain lions, moose, elk. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Those are not that far.
I know.
Yeah.
And then we love the wildlife and we have cameras outside, so we try to catch some nature in action, which is a lot of fun for our kids too.
That's pretty cool. So another thing is, so you're east of Salida. You are a little closer. So down Highway 50, you leave Salida, go east, and you head towards Howard. And then not too far away is Canyon City. And then not too much further than that is Colorado Springs. So if you've watched my video about the pros and cons of living in Salida, one of the cons for some people is that you're pretty far away from the city and amenities. Now in Howard, you're a little bit closer to the amenities in Canyon City and Colorado Springs.
I really like being close to Canyon City. I feel like it gets kind of a bad rap, but to visit for a day, they have like a beautiful river walk. There are more restaurants. There are a few more stores. There's a Chili's. Exciting. But it's it's like a whole nother city with lots of great things to offer. And then being close to Colorado Springs is really great too. Especially for getting to the airport. The Colorado Springs Airport is my favorite airport.
That's right. So that leads us to the next pro, which is kind of same but separate, because I want to highlight it, because a lot of people who live here, you are one of them, work remotely, right? And so sometimes you have to travel for business, or other people who move out here, you want to travel somewhere, you want to get to the airport. You don't always have to drive 3 hours to Denver. You could drive to Colorado Springs. Elaborate on your opinions of Colorado Springs Airport. I know you have it.
I do. Colorado Springs Airport is an hour 45 from my house, which is beautiful. Okay. The parking is very cheap, and it takes, so I was just telling you, the other day I had to travel for work. My flight was at 11. I parked at 10:03. I was at my gate at 10:23. So it was like
from car to gate.
From car to gate.
And in 20 minutes.
Yeah. And I stopped at the bathroom too. Like it was
there was no rushing.
There's no stress, there's no rushing, there's no lines. It's like 14 gates. It's like a calming experience compared to the Denver airport. If you've ever been to the Denver airport,
so big, and
it's not my favorite. So I love that option of being close to Colorado Springs, especially for work. Sometimes it is a little bit more expensive, but they also have direct flights to a lot of cities. They have like 7 or 8 cities they go to direct, which is really nice, especially if you're going West Coast. So yeah, it's handy.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll just have a layover in Denver, which isn't that bad, right?
It's fine. It's better than going through the Denver airport
via car
process.
Security.
Yeah,
and it's a madhouse there sometimes. So those are the positives for now. There's more than that, but we'll pepper them in. So some things that can be leaning towards a con would be you're 20 minutes from Salida. So that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what you want. I know I recently showed a house where the seller was moving from downtown Salida to Howard because they decided downtown Salida wasn't for them. So sometimes it could be a pro, but still there's not a whole lot of amenities in Howard, right? So you have to go to Salida to get groceries, all of your needs, right?
Yes.
So so what's that like to have to, you're not biking a minute to the store and grabbing milk real quick, right?
This is true. I will say, especially if you're coming from a city or from Denver specifically, like 20-minute drive is like, it's really not bad.
It's not a gridlocked 20-minute drive.
It's beautiful.
We'll elaborate on the drive in a second.
Yeah.
But it's not too far, right?
It's not that bad. And it's just, I feel like it's cultural. People are like 20 minutes. Wow. But again, like in Denver, people would be like, it's 20 minutes.
Yeah. It's all relative.
But yeah, I enjoy driving and I like the drive. So it doesn't bother me at all. The only thing we have in Howard is a wonderful liquor store campground. It's a campground liquor store that also has, they have food truck outside. They have a couple food trucks now. So there is a little hub in Howard that's maybe growing slightly.
Nice.
But yeah, we're in town a lot. Our kids go to school in town. So we're here pretty much every day. So it's easy to get groceries and get what we need at home.
That's not too bad because you work remotely, but you also work at the co-work. Salida has a nice place for people to work remotely for work. And your husband has a job in town, right? So you're coming a lot. Yeah. If you have a lifestyle where you're coming here, what do you just make sure you grab what you need before you go back home? Right?
Exactly.
So let's elaborate a little bit more on the actual road from Salida to Howard. So like we mentioned, it's beautiful, but it's also winding through a canyon. It goes along the Arkansas River, so it's actually gorgeous. But it has its setbacks, right?
It does. It's a little bit of a scary road, I guess, especially in the winter. But I will say it's like we have a handful of days in the winter where I'm like, don't want to do that road. Just don't want to head out there. But most of the time it is a highway. It's Highway 50. So it's really well maintained. Like even in the winter, most of the time the plows are out and they're sanding or salting or whatever. So it's not terrible. Again, it's beautiful, but that is one of the things you have to get comfortable with, is knowing you're going to have to drive that road a lot.
Yeah. So, if you're going to do it, make sure you're familiar with driving in the winter. You have a good vehicle for that, proper tires. I mean, like you said, it's a winding canyon. So sometimes there's some shade and not a lot of melting quickly. You have to be mindful.
Yes.
So, okay. So somewhat of a con there. Another thing, we kind of alluded to this, Anna lives in one of the only neighborhoods in Howard. There's a few. There's Isles of Ireland, Holiday Hills, and kind of like the Old Town area where homes are a little bit, am I missing anything? A little bit closer together. And then there's a lot of just space in Howard, but it's not like a walkable, you walk to whatever like you would in Salida. Right. And so how does that you don't have that neighborhood feel as much?
That's true. Again, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. If you like that privacy and that space, which we really enjoy. So we do still walk around our neighborhood. There's lots to do outside. So we're outside a lot.
You're close to trails too, right?
We are close to trails, and it's hilly, but biking there is fun as well.
Okay. The last con to point out is when you live in Howard, most of Howard is outside of the Salida School District. So as Salida is growing, they are having people who are, when you apply, or I guess when you register your child to school, you would have to register as a non-district, and you don't necessarily get first dibs on the spot. So it's kind of open to availability in that grade and the teachers. And so this is something, it's kind of growing pains of a small area. It's not saying if you move to Howard, your kids can't go to Salida schools. It's just, there's a little bit of a barrier there now, right? I know. So Ann and I actually have kids around the same age. Our sons are in the same class together, but we were in the Montessori school, right?
Yes.
So that's something that wouldn't necessarily be, you're still in the Salida School District, but it's not the same type of limitations. So if you're in the Montessori school, that's toddler to 8th grade. And so if you're in the Montessori school, your kids would still be able to go to that. But if you're in the public schools, you'd have to apply for non-district, right? So let's talk about the Montessori school for your kids.
Yeah, we love the Montessori school. And there are also other, like pre-K, there are lots of options. I'm not going to say lots of options. There are some options in town. But we feel, thankful that we got into the Montessori program, and it's wonderful. And it goes through 8th grade. So we don't really know what the situation will look like when, my oldest is 5. So when she's ready for high school, there is the school that much of Howard goes to is the Cotopaxi district, which is about 10 minutes down the road towards Canyon City. So
further east.
So I'm not sure yet if we're gonna if we'll try to get them into the Salida schools or go with Cotopaxi. It'll depend on availability and if, again, growing pains. So potentially the city of Salida is going to keep expanding and allowing more people to come in. Don't know.
There's a lot of talks about that. So we're talking about this now as it's becoming, this is pretty new, that it's becoming a question for families in Howard. And so it'll just kind of have to be a little bit case by case. So if you're thinking of moving here, look into what's happening right now. because there could be some solutions being created in Salida that makes it less of an issue. So, which I foresee happening. And it's not every grade. I know elementary school is the one that's filling up pretty quickly, but I haven't heard at least that it's applying to the older grades.
Yeah.
So it really depends. So check in to find out what's happening right now if you're watching this, and that's a barrier for you. So that would be one of the final cons of living in Howard. What else? Do you have anything to add about your thoughts on Howard?
Yeah. Also, just a side note, Howard is in Fremont County, not Chaffee County.
True.
So it's not super relevant, but I guess there are some county services that would be different.
That's true.
And if you're doing things like going to the DMV or something like that, you're going to Canyon City because
That's
it's Fremont
true.
County.
Okay.
If you're interested in participating in local government, it's going to be Fremont County, not Chaffee. So
That's
another consideration.
And then another thing, I know we kind of alluded to this with the space, but they have different regulations on animals too in Fremont.
So
if you're an animal person, and by animals I mean like goats and pigs and cows, and because you've got a lot of space, you have a bit more options with the animals that you can have.
And we love that. It's really great. Like our neighbors have horses, our other neighbors have donkeys and cows. It's really fun to see.
Yeah.
And my kids love it. And I like that there's that flexibility. We don't have anything fun. We have cats, but someday, if the kids talk us into goats, we're ready.
Yeah. And you've got the space for it, and you've got it, and Fremont County allows it. So,
Yes.
Obviously look at what's happening specifically in that neighborhood and everything, but generally speaking, it's
Yeah, and again, we live in the most neighborhoody neighborhood there, and again, donkeys.
Yeah. So how
There's
cool is
very
that
few
you have
regulations. Yeah.
That's true. That's also really true. You have your regulations. So yeah, well, living in Howard is an amazing option if you're considering moving to the Salida, Colorado area, particularly if you're looking at home prices here and taken aback at what you can get. Then if you want more space, if you want to have more space for your buck, it's really good for that. So, well, thank you, Anna, for chatting with us about Howard. And if you have any questions about living in Howard or Salida, Colorado, leave them in the comments below or shoot me a message. All of my information is in the description below. I'd be happy to chat with you about your move here. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Monica McCarthy. Have a wonderful day.